So for this video, I decided to talk about a project we're doing in one of my classes, Art, Design, and Identity. The exercise being called Visual Heritage, which is all about how we are potentially influenced by our visual surroundings and how this can play a role in our current practice as a designer or artist, and even zooming out more as a fellow human, and how these interpretations and surroundings can have influenced us. So in a long-term project like this, I like to have a couple of stages in the back of my mind, them being researching, conceptualizing, experimenting, and creating. But for this, seeing it's a very personal assignment, I wanted to first just collect my thoughts, movies that I watched, different cultures I was raised in, already starting to ask questions and creating links, and looking at different artist practices already in existence, different media that I'm inspired by. I tried to continue this forth throughout the entire project. So personal relevance, questions I have, type of media I could use, the standpoint I want to make, and the impact of it zooming out. And this tends to also be a certain order that I like to go through, but I always end up jumping back and forth naturally. This show I used to watch all the time as a kid that worked a lot with sequences and rhythm and colors, and they were able to assemble this frame of predictability, and you knew what to expect. So I started experimenting with my own ways of presenting that as well, creating satisfying visuals. But I wanted to translate this in a different medium. So I started looking into different art practices that worked similarly with objects. One being Rosa Seiben, and she was definitely a really big inspiration of mine. So I started looking more into her artistic statements and her portfolio, and I started doing similar experiments with materials that I had that were able to really let me create personalized pieces. I kept record of all of the conversations that I had with classmates or teachers or just people in my surroundings. Small things that they said that stood out to me and inspired me, and that really helps me just document my thought process, because in the end this is a really big part of it. References to other works, but most of it just discussions. Conceptualizing more, referring back to an article that I'd read, trying out different media just to kind of pick my brain more. I referred to something that I'd written a couple of years ago that the current path of the project reminded me of, that I thought was relevant. Going back to the TV shows and other elements in my childhood, but more now focused on forms and shapes. Experimenting more, working with words and drawings just to create a more vivid idea in my head. Material experimentations again and again, trying out new things. Milena Naif was also an artist that I was told to look into, which was really interesting. I chose to, even though it didn't end up playing as big of a role in the project, it did in my perspective on it. Again, just some more ideas, research, trying out new things, realizing you don't like it, and moving on. This was a very shallow overview of my research process, but I would say that overall the limitations, I would really like to experiment more with visualizing my ideas so that I can share them more throughout the process with other people. And in the future, I also want to steer away from the internet and use more tangible inspirations like books or museums in the future. So, yeah, I think I'll definitely benefit a lot from that. Thank you for your time.